What's up, everybody? My name is Josh LaFleur from Late Start Piano. Today, we're going to be talking about bad practice habits that you should try to avoid that are really common that I see all the time from everybody. I'm even guilty of doing this myself at times. But the goal of this video is to make you aware of it, make you conscious of how you're practicing and what you're doing so that you can avoid these going forward in the future. So I wrote down a few different ones here. We'll just go ahead and get right into it. First of all, the biggest egregious thing that you can do when you sit down at the piano to practice is sit down and you have no plan as what you're doing for that practice session. Okay, so when you just go ahead, let's say you practice for 30 minutes a day, you're pretty consistent with your 30 minutes every day. If you just go from your job or whatever you're doing, you're washing dishes, your laundry, and you're like, okay, now's my time to practice, and you just sit down and you just do whatever comes to mind, that is the worst practice habit that you can do, especially as an adult where your time might be a little bit limited. If you have a family, if you have a full-time job, if you're involved in your community, if you have kids, okay, you're going to have limited time to actually practice the piano. So if you just sit down and you waste even 5 or 10 minutes, that is a good chunk of your practice session that you pretty much just wasted, okay? And what do I mean by wasting? Well, there's a huge difference between practicing playing the piano and playing the piano. When you are practicing the piano, you're focused, you're disciplined in what you're doing. You're thinking about every kind of movement, the way your elbows are going, your forearms, if you have tension in your hands. You're thinking about the music theory, how the piece you're playing is making sense, why it sounds good, the expressions, the dynamics, all of that stuff, okay? You're working on everything. When you play the piano, if you're playing the piano like for fun, then chances are you already know the song that you're playing, okay? So you don't really have to think too much, which is fine. But you're not really thinking a whole lot. You already have the muscle memory built in your hands and your arms, so you don't really have to think about anything. You're just playing for fun. And there's nothing wrong with playing for fun, but it's not practicing, okay? Practicing can be fun. Sitting down, playing whatever you want, that's not practicing. That's you playing the piano. So if you only have 30 minutes, you want to maybe end your practice session like that, have your last 5 minutes or so where you're just playing the piano, you're having fun, you're ending on a good note, you're just playing something you like because it's fun. That's why you got into playing the piano in the first place. But the majority of it, like 90% of it, 95% of it, should be practicing, okay? And again, you want to have a plan in mind. So are you starting with technique? If you are you doing arpeggios? Are you doing scales? How are you practicing scales? Is it in thirds? Is it parallel motion? Is it contrary motion? Are you practicing octaves? Are you working on music theory? Are you working on some improvisation? What are you doing with your practice time? Okay, you need to have an answer for this. You should literally have your phone out. This is what I do. Put up the timer on your phone. Okay, so again, we'll use a 30-minute example. Put up the timer, hit start on your iPhone. Everybody has an iPhone, right? Or some timer on their phone. And do the first 5 minutes, literally time it out. Put the first 5 minutes, you're doing your technique, your warm-ups, whatever. The next 25 minutes, you're working on the piece that you don't know, the piece that you're trying to get better at, if you're working at a method book, whatever it is. And then the last 5 minutes, you're doing whatever you want, you're just playing, okay? And once that timer hits 30 minutes, you're good to go. You use your practice time efficiently. Everything was planned ahead of time. You got the most out of it. Even though you're not practicing for 4 hours a day, you're being extremely efficient with your practice time. And I promise you that if you are doing this and you're efficient with your 30 minutes of practice time, you're going to improve a lot faster than somebody who plays an hour every day, but they kind of mess around. They don't really have a plan, okay? The discipline, the focus, the hand and mind and body connection is so important. Just like if you're lifting weights, you've probably heard, if you've ever been to the gym, you've heard about this mind and body connection, okay? It's so important because you want to be super locked in mentally and physically. And playing the piano is both mental and it's also physical. So this is very important, spending a lot of time on this point, but again, it's so important, okay? So have that practice plan every time before you sit down. You can have a free day as well. So if you practice, I practice 7 days a week. So if you practice 7 days a week, my fun day where I just play the piano is on Sundays. So on Sundays, if I play for an hour, then I'll just do whatever I want. I don't really plan it out like this. I have an idea of what I'm going to do, but Sunday is my fun day. I just play for fun. I don't work on any technique stuff or anything like that. I just play whatever I want, whether it's songs I know, or I try to learn a song by ear in 1 hour. That's something I'm working on, is ear training. Listen to a song, try to play it back as best as I can within an hour or 30 minutes, whatever it is I'm practicing for. That's fine, again, but keep in mind you want to have a plan for the majority of your practice sessions. To kind of go along with that, as far as the practicing versus playing, another big mistake that people do, another bad habit, is that they just play songs that they already know. Okay, we touched on this a little bit already, but just playing songs that you already know does not mean you're improving at the piano. Okay, it means that you are just playing for fun again. And you already have the muscle memory, you already are familiar with the song, you're familiar with the hand movements, you're familiar with the way you need to move, you're familiar with the expressions and the dynamics. You're not really getting any better. Okay, I like to make the analogy as if, let's say, you're a chef, okay, and you specialize in pizzas. Okay, you're a pizza chef, and you have a pizza shop, and you've made thousands and thousands of pizzas, and you're very comfortable with that. You can do it in your sleep. And let's say you want to get into more baking. Say you want to start baking cakes. If you go into your time as a chef and you just start making pizzas when you're supposed to be baking cakes, which you should be working on, it's a lot easier because you don't have to think about it. It's a lot easier. You might feel good because you're good at it, because you've done it 100 times, but you're not actually getting better. Same thing with piano. You'll feel good playing songs you already know. They sound great. It looks cool. You feel great, but you're not improving. Okay. Only exception to this is if you're going back to songs that you already know and you're fine tuning it. Okay. So fine tuning, I mean, you're working on expressions in a certain part, certain dynamic range. Maybe you're trying to add a little bit. Maybe you're going a little bit off of what the sheet music says. You're trying to improvise a certain section. Maybe you're working on the musicality of it. How is it coming out? Is it the sound you're making, the emotion you want to convey? If that's what you're doing with old songs, that's practicing. I consider that practicing. If you're just turning your mind off and you're on autopilot playing the song from start to finish, you're not fine tuning anything, that's what you want to avoid. That's playing what you already know. Okay, so another bad practice habit. Next bad practice habit is if you are trying to practice. Okay, so what I've said so far makes sense. You're ready to have that practice plan. You're ready to become focused and disciplined in your practicing strategy, and you're trying to learn a new piece. You're not trying to play stuff you've already learned. The mistake you can make in that case when learning a new piece is you go way too fast. You try to play up the tempo the first time you play it. Okay, so when you're learning a new piece, it doesn't matter what level you are, it doesn't matter what piece you're playing or how old that you are, you always start playing slow. And you want to be playing slow enough where you can not make any mistakes. So every note that you hit is the correct note. If you're playing or practicing a piece and you're hitting wrong notes, you're going too fast. Just slow down, make sure you're hitting the correct notes. Again, get that mind-body connection, that muscle memory in place so that every time you practice, you're practicing it the right way. I used to go to a karate studio, and one of the mantras or the banners on the wall was perfect practice makes perfect. Maybe that makes sense? But whatever it was saying, it was you need to practice perfectly to get the result that you want. If you're practicing it incorrectly, then you're not really practicing because you're practicing it messed up. So again, if you're hitting wrong notes, slow it down, go very slow, use a metronome. This is another bad habit that people practicing that they don't do. They don't use a metronome, okay, which means you can't really tell if you're improving. You don't know what tempo you're playing at. If you use the metronome, start it very slowly. Once you can play the piece all the way through pretty well, or really well at least a good amount, try to up it by 5 beats per minute. Okay, so up the tempo. If that's too easy, you can play it perfectly all the way through, up the tempo again by another 5 beats per minute, and slowly go up and up until you're at the target tempo, what that song should actually be at speed wise. Okay, that's the way you want to approach it. What you don't want to do is sit down, immediately try to play it at full speed. Another thing we want to talk about here is taking breaks and getting distracted for your practice sessions. So this one, again, is similar to what we've already talked about. But if you are using your phone to set that timer up, then it should help you because you're going to be visually seeing that, and it's going to help you keep you accountable with what you're supposed to be doing. Another thing I would suggest is when practicing, at least at the minimum, I would turn notifications off on your phone. Okay. So if this is giving you anxiety already, you can leave your text messages on, or maybe just certain people in case there's an emergency in the 30 minutes that you're practicing. Probably not. But if that makes you feel better, you can leave the text messages and phone calls on and shut off everything else. Shut off your social media notifications, shut off your calendar notifications, shut off your email notifications, shut off any kind of apps that are messaging you. Okay, shut all that shit off so that you can focus on what you're supposed to be doing and limit the distractions. And one more point here, a bad practice habit that people do is that they don't set up their ideal practice environment. Now this kind of goes hand in hand with the other point we just talked about. It's all about eliminating distractions and making sure that you can stay focused on exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So I'm fortunate enough here where I live, where I have my own little office room and I have a door. So I can literally shut the door and anybody who's here or the cat, they can't come in. I can just solely focus on what I'm playing. If you don't have that, it's a little bit tougher, but you want to set up the environment where you can be alone and nobody's trying to ask anything of you, okay? So if that's maybe getting up a little bit earlier, where you don't have to do anything, there's not demands on you from work or your spouse or your pet, then get up earlier. If you can kind of set up something, maybe if you have a finished basement, let's say, that's comfortable to play in, then you can play in the basement. You can try to set up some kind of curtain maybe that you can shut the curtain, and now you have like your own little makeshift office. Whatever you need to do, the point is you want to eliminate distractions, eliminate your focus being taken away from you so that you can be disciplined and focused just for the time that you're playing, okay? Again, especially if you don't have a lot of time, you're an adult, you're trying to learn piano the best you can, you don't have a lot of time, you need to maximize your time as best as possible and be efficient with it as you possibly can. Okay, so hopefully those steps help, and those are the bad practice habits that you want to avoid. If you like what I said here and you kind of like the way I approach things, I do have a free PDF right now. It's a free guide, 100% free. And it's going to tell you specifically 34 essential tips that you need to know as a beginner playing the piano. And this guide is going to help you save a lot of time and a lot of problems down the road because I went through it, so I can now help you avoid those problems, avoid those bad practice habits, and get better in the least amount of time possible. So where you can get this guide is you can go to www.latestartpiano.com. There'll be a big purple button on that page. You'll click on it, enter in your email address, and you'll be getting that PDF immediately. Again, totally free of charge, and it's going to help you play a lot better and avoid mistakes that a lot of adult beginners learn. Again, my name is Josh LaFleur from Late Start Piano. Any questions, concerns, comments, drop a comment on this video and I'll get back to you. Happy practicing.